Okay, Dr. Cox, I think we're ready.
Thank you.
All right. Well, good evening. We are back in open session for this Board of Education meeting for October 4th, 2021. We'll go in this part of open session and we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. So if everyone will stand and face the flag and join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Second on our agenda here that we have is our comments from our superintendent, Dr. Cox.
So first of all, happy October, October 4th. I've told several people, I think October snuck up on us this school year, but we are into the almost done with the first quarter of learning for our students. But this Friday, October 8th, is an early release day. You guys approved that as a change on the calendar. Elementary release is at 11:30 in the morning. Middle school is noon. Early college 12:15, and high school at 12:30. Also added, if you remember, we're Friday, November 5th and Friday, February 4th as early release days. And then what was already on the calendar, of course, was Friday, October 15th as a calendar teacher work day, but those 3 early release days were recently added. So I want to make sure that we made note of that to the families that are watching. On September 24th, on Friday at the middle school and high school, we had about 24 students who participated in a vaccination clinic with permission from their parents, of course. It's the only way that children can get the vaccine is with parent permission. Eligible staff members who are eligible for the booster shot, we did not know about it until really that day, because I think it was the day before that it was announced that boosters would be available. So some of the staff members were able to get their booster shot who were eligible at that point in time. And they also handed out vaccination information that day on when the shots would be available within the community for those people who wanted it. As you may know, I've been participating in Leadership ASH with other community members to learn more about Ashe County. And it's amazing. There are people who have been in Ashe County all their lives and are learning things about Ashe County that they did not know. So it's a great program offered through Wilkes and our chamber. And we were at our last meeting at the Upper Mountain Research Station in Laurel Springs. So I just want to tell you, as a former science teacher, I get giddy over science and things that are really, truly high-level research in STEM within our own community. And so we were able to see the one-of-a-kind Fraser Fir Seed Orchard. And when I say one of a kind, it's truly unique in the world. Nobody else does the research that they do at this particular station. We got to see the cattle and look at how they are utilizing the research on behavior of cattle to really look at, as our population grows, how are we going to sustain feeding people over time? So we're doing that research here in Ashe County. And then additionally, besides Christmas trees, and especially our Fraser firs that are so popular, Pumpkins, of course, have become a very popular thing to grow here in Ashe County. You're going to hear more from Courtney Eller, who's doing a pumpkin exercise with our elementary students, which is really exciting. But they were using drones, and this is in partnership with NC State University. So when I mean high level, it's high level. They're out in a field, they're growing pumpkins, and they're able to learn a lot about the growing conditions of the pumpkins to inform what those growing conditions need to be, estimate the population of those pumpkins so we have a better idea when they're trying to market it for sale. I was really excited about it. Like I said, the science teacher in me gets really excited. The STEM kid in me gets excited. But when you hear from Courtney Eller later on, think about those type of partnerships and then see what she's doing for high level math, science, STEM to engage our elementary students. And there's a lot of potential right here. So I'm excited about that. This past Saturday, fell on a Saturday, but October 2nd was School Custodian Appreciation Day. This year, more than any other year. I mean, our custodians are important, but wow, have they worked to keep our schools not just clean and safe, but beautiful. And we really do have fantastic facilities, especially for their age. And we appreciate the dedication and work of our custodians to make that happen. October is National Principals Month. So I want to say a special thank you to our principals and assistant principals. Our principals and assistant principals behind the scenes are really working tirelessly. Not only are they trying to keep school running, but there's a lot that's being thrown at us from the state and national levels, things that we have to think about continually, and they're doing a great job of doing that. And some of our principals and assistant principals are driving a bus in the morning and driving a bus in the afternoon, or even midday for the case of some pre-K. So we commend them, we appreciate them, and we thank our leaders because behind the scenes, they do more than you'll ever know on a day-to-day basis. This is also Hispanic Heritage Month, and we honor the contributions of American citizens who have ancestors from Spain and Mexico and the Caribbean and Central America and South America. We'll be doing some things with throughout the month to bring that recognition here. Next week, we have federal monitoring. So I put that in the middle this time instead of the very end. But the federal monitoring is, of course, we just happen to be first on the list because Ashe County starts with an A. So we're the lucky ones, but then over a 3-year period, while other districts are learning from us, we will have that over. Here in a few weeks, we have teachers and leaders through the ACES program through Appalachian State University coming to visit our schools and learn from our school and district administrators. They're going to be learning from us. We're going to be sharing some relevant data. We're going to be sharing with them what we do in our district and to lead our schools. And then they're going to get to see what high quality teaching and learning looks like here in Ashe County. So they have been partnering with other districts. They've been to some districts that are not rural and some that are very rural. And so they get to see from Ashe County next time. So we're really proud of what they're going to see. This month, with all of our schools, is a part of our strategic plan and our strategic plan monitoring. We are beginning district and school data meetings to regularly review the data that we have and the things that we are implementing. Our teachers do a really good job of reflecting within their PLCs. And so we are making sure that we are sharing those ideas, making sure that it's happening in every school and that we're sharing across our schools, as well as collaborating to benefit the growth of all of our children. So we're doing that as a district, going in and partnering with with schools, and then coming back to evaluate, are we really meeting the needs with the resources that we're providing to schools. And then some really excellent information that is hot off the press. So one of them, kudos to Jamie Little, who's sitting in this room. We've been awarded a continuation of the federal mental health grant. The total amount for the grant is $2.5 million. This year's continuation amount is $675,000, and essentially it pays for our ASK Center, the mental health services that we provide at the high school, as well as a social worker and mental health resources. So as you all know, our mental health needs are growing within the county, growing all across the state and nation, and this grant will help us to meet those needs. And then here's the one that's really hot off the press that you guys haven't even heard. I'm so excited. Jennifer Green called me. Jennifer and Adam and Jerry and I met with together, several months ago, as we are looking for the middle school. And, you know, the high cost of the middle school left us all with a little bit of sticker shock, but we were committed to doing what we can to make sure that we were getting the most out of what we wanted. Well, Jennifer came to us and said, hey, I've got an idea. We currently have a bulldog clinic on the campus of the middle school, the current middle school. So we just received notice today that we were awarded $550,667 toward the cost of the new clinic at the middle school. So this will go directly toward the construction and toward outfitting the needs in that clinic. So I've got chills just thinking about it. It's great news for our community and the continuing partnership that we have with Appalachian Health to make sure that our middle school students are provided the services that they need. I wish we had one on all of our schools, but I'm very thankful that we have one at our middle school. And I think that's it.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Cox. Never a dull moment in the school system. Active and going. Lots of good news.
Well, I wish we could highlight everything, and we just can't. And I was talking to the team today, and I said, we've got to make a concerted effort to really share the great things that are going on, because we just get into our routine and just do it. I think our teachers do the same thing. They're doing high quality work, lots of great things for kids. And, you know, we forget that not everybody gets to see inside of the classroom or inside of the school building. So.
Next on the agenda, we have public comment. As always, I will read our policy that we have to explain public comment. And in doing that, in accordance with policy 2310, the board chairperson will recognize speakers in the order in which they are signed in. Each speaker will receive 3 minutes to present comments. However, the public comment session will not exceed 30 minutes total, except by the majority vote of the board. If a speaker is unable to present all of his or her information within the specified time limit, the speaker may provide the board with the additional information in written form. Please refrain from addressing specific employee or student concerns as part of public comment. Concerns for that can be directed to district leadership as prescribed in policy 2310. Board members will not respond to individuals who address the board except to request for clarification of points made by the presenter. The board chairperson has the authority to speak on behalf of the board and to refer concerns to administration. Except in cases of emergency, information received during presentations will not be acted upon at the time it is received. So with that, reading the policy there, we will start. We do have, looks like 4 individuals signed up for public comment. And just for the ones speaking, just so you know, I've got a timer here for the 3 minutes. As you are speaking, if I hold my finger up, that means you've got 1 more minute left before the timer will go off on that. So first we have signed in Mr. Drew Martin.
Good evening. Drew Martin, live in Jefferson. I'd like to quote to you excerpts from an August 20th article in New York Magazine Intelligencer. The science of masking kids remains uncertain. Quote, at the end of May, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention published a notable yet mostly ignored large-scale study of COVID transmission in American schools. What did that study say? Quote, distancing, hybrid models, classroom barriers, HEPA filters, and most notably requiring student masking were each found to not have a statistically significant benefit. In other words, these measures could not be said to be effective. That study was, as I said, conducted by the CDC in May of this year. The article goes on to point out that the World Health Organization, along with several of our peer nations, including the UK, Ireland, France, the Netherlands, Switzerland, Italy, and all of Scandinavia, do not believe masking kids is the way to go, even with the advent of the Delta variant. There's also much written by reporter David Zweig about how children are far less likely to become ill, even if infected. I encourage you to read the entire article. Also, I recommend that you look at the Great Barrington Declaration, if you're not already familiar with it. In it, infectious disease epidemiologists and public health scientists from across the USA and throughout the world, and from all across the political spectrum, share their, quote, grave concerns about the damaging physical and mental health impacts of the prevailing COVID-19 policies. Their website reports 860,000 signatures gathered so far. These sources represent some of the research I've done. Happy to share more. I'm here today asking you, as an elected official who sought this position, who swore an oath to, among other responsibilities, protect our children from harm, who has a vote on critically important issues such as this, directly affecting the health of our precious children, and who obviously cares deeply about doing the right thing by those kids and their families. I ask you, have you done your due diligence? Have you researched this issue in depth? Have you taken personal responsibility for informing your own opinion rather than relying on others telling you what to believe or what to do? As with any issue, once you learn the facts, that decision isn't hard. And let me say, face coverings can't be the right answer in both cases, whether or not cases of COVID go up and down. So please, I ask you, do the right thing. Allow the parents of Ashe County to decide whether their children wear masks at school.
Thank you, Mr. Warren. Next, we have for public comment, Alicia Richardson. Miss Richardson, Alicia Richardson.
Someone not.
Ms. Walker, Alicia Richardson, is she online?
No, sir, I do not see anyone online of Ms. Richardson.
I'll take your spot.
But we don't, you have to sign up, you have to sign up for that, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Sir, I know you're watching it on your phone, but we're going to start getting a feedback loop for
Sure.
sound in here. Yeah, thank you.
So we'll move on. The next person I had signed in for public comment, Gina. Say the last name for me so I don't get it wrong.
Contendo.
Cantando, thank you for that. So I'll go ahead and you can address the board.
Good evening. Mandatory masks continue to be the standard operating procedure, despite the plethora of well-rooted scientific evidence showing the ineffectiveness of widespread masking in healthy people in the reduction of the transmissibility of respiratory viruses, including COVID. I refer to you one of the largest randomized controlled studies done last year looking at masks and transmissibility of COVID. I'll leave it here for your reference. Prior to spring of 2020 and on the onset of COVID, the WHO themselves acknowledged that face masks are ineffective. And no available evidence has shown that they protect non-sick persons in the community against infection of respiratory viruses, including COVID. WHO, CDC, top of the line physicians, and psychologists have mentioned the harmful effects of long-term masking, such as moist masks, a breeding ground for bacteria and fungus, claustrophobic experiences, difficult getting sufficient oxygen, increase in the stress hormone. Face masks also prevent the mirroring of facial expression, significant increase in socio-psychological stress, behavioral and emotional problems, weakened immune system, interference with play at school, increase in depression,
and anxiety rates by 300 to 400% in this last year alone. Increased suicide rates, right? Facts are, folks, COVID-19 is mainly spread by microscopic aerosols. Isn't that correct? The viral bulk of these aerosols easily penetrate common masks because 90% of the aerosols are less than 1/17th the size of pores in surgical masks, less than 1/80th the size of pores in the finest cloth masks. These are facts. These are not my opinions. The risk of aerosol transmission can be greatly reduced by disinfecting with ultraviolet light, which is part of the energy spectrum emitted by the sun. It's simple, it's safe, it's inexpensive, and it's been used to neutralize the spread of contagious respiratory diseases for more than 80 years. Furthermore, children very rarely become sick from COVID. They rarely become super spreaders, and if they do, cases are very mild. Let me remind you that the survival rate of people ages 0 to 19 is 99.997, right? Other viruses such as RSV and influenza have similar fatality rates as COVID for children, and there's no mandating masks, right, for these disease processes. Masks have become accepted by many as dogma and visible symbol of compliance. By replacing individual choice with collective mandates, public officials have politicized and polluted science. In public health, there's something called the principle of effectiveness. Public officials ought not to be recommending a preventable measure, let alone mandating it without knowing its effectiveness. Even if we conceded that they are marginally effective, that would not be enough reason to mandate them, as this would go against public health principles. We need to put things in perspective, and our policies need to make sense. Public health policies cannot be based on emotion and fear mongering, but based on sound science and data. The data out there is for all of us to review. It's not locked in a vault somewhere. While there are differences in opinion, the vast majority of data of masks conclude they are ineffective and likely harmful for healthy individuals in the general population. Thank you. Very much.
And last I have for public comment is Mr. Nathan Wolford.
Sit here. Here's a.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Nathan Wolford, and I first want to thank you all for what you do for our children. I have two kids that attend schools in Essex County. They're 9 and 12, so 4th and 7th grade. I didn't bring all the research. I brought a lot of common sense, and the one research I brought was 1 in 174,803 children die from COVID. Okay. There's more than that in influenza in children when you look at it. You guys are elected officials, and we elected you. We are tired of seeing our kids in masks when there's enough science to back our side too. Okay, that's why I'm here. My kids hate it. My youngest daughter has asthma, and she does not do well confined. So now she has to go to school with a mask on where she feels confined and take tests and not do good because she's sitting there with anxiety. Okay, we are watching our freedoms being stripped away, and a lot of us are tired of it. The second thing I'm going to talk on is lockers in the middle school and the high school. My 12-year-old daughter, her book bag weighs 23 pounds. She weighs 88 pounds. That's 26% of her body, 26% of her body weight on her back walking through the halls because they're not allowed to have lockers for some reason. This is asinine, and it's hurting our children between the masks and these lockers. She also plays sports, and she is active in the, Battle of the Books. So this is all before her sports equipment and her Battle of the Books stuff. That is just the books and computers that you guys have given her is 23 pounds on her back all day. And we're tired of it. The parents are tired of it. The kids are tired of it. I'm going to end this on a note with, what are we going to do when our kids finally stand up for their own rights to not wear masks? It's happening all over this country. What are we going to do when they finally walk up to the doors of school and say, no, we're not wearing it no more? It's their rights as children. They have the same rights as us standing here today. Some of you taught me this in school. I'm just asking you, to please reconsider when you vote for the safety of our children. One, on the lockers, and definitely on the mask. The science is there to prove that it's not effective. Thank you. You guys have a good night.
That was the last that we had for public comment there. Thank you all for signing up and doing that. We appreciate that. Next, we'll go into awards and recognitions. And so first exciting news, Blue Ridge Elementary, Dr. Collins.
So hopefully Joe Allen, hi Joe Allen, are you there and can come in and we'll see Joe Allen on here. So Blue Ridge Elementary School has been named a national Blue Ribbon School for 2021. This is an incredibly difficult honor to earn. It's based on a lot of data and also a well-written awards application that Joe Allen and her team put together over the last few months. We found out last month or a few weeks ago, and then of course it was announced nationally about a week ago, and we are so very proud of Blue Ridge Elementary School. To me, this shares a lot about not only the hard work of our teachers and administrators, but this is really a community award. It's how our community is pulled together to serve the children of Blue Ridge Elementary. This award was given, they are a Title I school. We have children who have very high needs at Blue Ridge Elementary School, and yet the teachers and the families and the students have pulled together to mitigate gaps that are present in other communities just like them to close those gaps on behalf of children. So I'm really proud of Blue Ridge Elementary School and proud of the teacher leadership and the leadership in general and how you guys have pulled together over time. So Joe Allen, you want to say a couple of words? We get to go to Washington, D.C., 3 of us, only because of COVID, only 3 get to go. To receive the award and the banner that will be proudly displayed. And they're going to get a lot of recognition in the upcoming month or so. But Joe Allen?
Well, I'm honored to be with Blue Ridge Elementary School. We are one of 325 schools in the United States who have received this award, one of 8 schools in North Carolina. So we've, Blue Ridge has done amazing things in the last several years, and I'm so very proud. We will be celebrating with our staff soon, and we will be celebrating on the 29th of October with our students. And board members, we would love for you to join us at that celebration, and I will be sending information to you in the coming weeks or to see if you would like to be there.
And we also have another celebration that's going to happen in December with some state leaders that are going to come and join the team at Blue Ridge Elementary. More to come once all of that is settled, but we get to celebrate Blue Ridge Elementary School for a while, and it's well deserved because they've done some great things on behalf of children. So congratulations, Joe Allen.
Thank you.
And that's as an alumni, I went to Blue Ridge for 1 year. We consolidated Lansing Elementary and Blue Ridge or in Riverview, and I got to go my 6th grade year to Blue Ridge. So that's wonderful news for up there in the northwest end of the county. So congratulations.
You guys have done a great job.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. That's great.
And they were able to maintain that in a COVID year, which is incredible. I mean, that's incredible. So.
Thank you, Ms. Louder. Next, we'll go on to our Rudel Ambassador Program.
So we should have Sarah Kesterson on here. So Sarah, if you are on here, if you can promote yourself here. Let me read a little bit about the Rudel Ambassador because this is another state, this is a state recognition for her. So the Division of Child Development and Early Education and PBS North Carolina have partnered together to develop early learning kits to facilitate summer learning and support the transition to kindergarten in our NC pre-K children. With the support of preschool development grants, Birth to 5, the Coronavirus Response Relief Supplement Appropriations Act, kits will be distributed to 50 counties and agencies, and of course we get those. So the early learning kits consist of developmentally appropriate materials such as children's books, scissors, flashcards, pencils, lots of different resources to support the learning and transition to kindergarten, specifically children who've had at least in-person learning opportunities or limited family engagement during the pandemic. And of course, we qualify. Sarah Kesterson is one of 16 statewide that has been nominated as a Rudel ambassador and will represent Ashe County schools throughout this process. And so this is a statewide opportunity for her to not only represent Ashe County, but also provide her expertise on leadership of pre-kindergarten programs. And we know early learning is really important. We've talked about that many times. And Sarah Kesterson is representing us. So we are thankful for her leadership already as a pre-K teacher. And she's looking forward to learning how to better serve the families and early childhood learners in Ashe counties. And through this program, she'll have the opportunity to share high quality resources with caregivers and educators and parents and connect them to the tools and the training guide for their children. And so there is Sarah Kesterson. We are so proud of you. So if you want to unmute yourself, and we're proud of you. So thank you for what you do for children, Sarah.
Thank you very much. I'm super excited to be able to work with the early childhood centers, also not just within the school system, but all of the other early childhood centers in Ashe County. I think the main goal is to connect families with resources that they can use. I know, parents are doing the best they can with what they have. And so the whole goal of the Rudel program and PBS is to connect them with more resources that they can use to work with their children. So I'm very excited to get, through the program, I'll be doing 2 engagements within our community, and I'm going to, working on partnering with the Partnership for Ashe and Imagination Ashe also. I'm working on hopefully doing something. I want it to be in person, so it'll probably be in the spring, doing some sort of literacy night to connect families with resources to better help their children be prepared to come to school. And then some training with our staff as well. But PBS has a whole bunch of resources online. The PBS Learning Media is a website that teachers from all grades can go to find resources, not just for early childhood. The programming is mostly early childhood within the PBS stations, but there's resources out there. So if anyone ever has any questions or needs anything, please let me know. I'm excited to work with our community.
Congratulations on that one out of 16 there.
It's a 5-year program. So they're starting out with a pilot, and within 5 years, they hope to have an ambassador in every county. They wanted to take into account the needs of each specific area so that they could better reach and have a more equitable outreach into North Carolina. So I'm very excited. Thank you very much.
Any questions for Ms. Kesterson?
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Next, we have, as in education, a lot of acronyms.
Of course we do.
So-
And I had to look up what these acronyms meant when I got here, but really these are our of the year acronyms.
Yeah.
So in May, these of the years were selected by our schools, and we have not been able to have an in-person celebration of them yet, but we are going to have one. I am determined to do that. As I understand it, the year prior, we did not have the normal dinner because we were shut down. for COVID for our of the year, so teacher of the year, support staff. So we're going to do a big celebration with more people coming up. I know Amanda takes a deep breath with what that might cost us, but we are excited to honor them. But I wanted everyone to know who we are honoring here in Ashe County. So we should have up there our teacher of the year, Holly Mcclure, our supervisory support person of the year, Julie Jones, our classified employee of the year, Kayla Moore, and our rookie of the year, Charlene Horton. So I want to read you something about each of them because we have a lot of outstanding people that work here in Ashe County, and they represent these outstanding people. So I'm going to start with our beginning teacher of the year / rookie of the year, Charlene Horton, who is at our middle school. Hi, Charlene. There she is. Now, you know, science teacher, love my science teachers here. I love all teachers, but they have a special place in my heart. But Charlene has really taken off as a leader in the middle school and for science and really for anyone who loves teaching children. But during the 2021 school year, she was a 7th grade science teacher who had the opportunity to share an exceptional experience with her students. In April, she and her students at the time interviewed members of the NASA SpaceX via Zoom, and a film crew from Time Studios also visited the middle school as a result to allow the school to be a part of the documentary on the Inspiration 4 mission through SpaceX. And I just want to read you something here. It says, Charlene began working for Ashe County Schools as a substitute teacher. She took her first teaching assignment at Ashe County Middle School in the fall of 2020 and immediately began to thrive. Charlene is a creative and innovative teacher who actively seeks out engaging activities for her students. She has gone out of her way to provide unique learning experiences for her students, such as partnering with NASA's astronauts for a Zoom question and answer session. She is a positive role model for students and consistently brings high energy into the classroom so as to benefit her students. We are blessed to have Ms. Horton as our rookie of the year. And I just want to say, Charlene, when I visited her classroom most recently, we had our state teacher of the year there, and she had lots of different things I could say about her. Her students were completely engaged. She walked out of her classroom and they were immersed in learning. They were building some type of filtration system as I remember it. But what impressed me the most, she had on this lab coat. And one of her students, you want to tell us what it said on your lab coat? And she has her students sign her lab coat every year. What did it say?
I think you're referring to the one where it said, Miss Horton's the best teacher. I love Miss Horton.
It is. Her teachers love her. They said it coming out of the room without unprompted. We love Miss Horton. We're glad we get to have her again because she's teaching 8th grade this year. So anytime a student is excited to have their teacher again, we know that Charlene is a great teacher. So thank you, Charlene.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Is Kayla Moore on here? There she is. Hi, Kayla.
Hi.
So previously, Ms. Moore served as a receptionist at Ashe County High School, and she is currently transitioning into her new role at Westwood Elementary School as the bookkeeper data manager. And she began her career with Ashe County High School as a part-time cafeteria assistant before serving as a receptionist at Ashe County High School. She has an Associate of Arts degree in psychology with a concentration in Christian counseling and is working toward a Bachelor of Science degree in behavior and social sciences. Those who nominated Ms. Moore for Classified Employee of the Year described her as compassionate. They described her professionalism and her hardworking nature. On several occasions, Ms. Moore, they said, stayed late to help complete tasks that were just needed to be done. So Kayla was known to go above and beyond. I'm sure Westwood is ecstatic to have her as their bookkeeper and data manager, and that the high school misses her as a receptionist. We're just glad that she works for Ashe County Schools.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm honored.
Congratulations.
And then our supervisory support person of the year is Julie Jones. Is she on here? I'm going to read something as she's coming through. She is a counselor at Blue Ridge Elementary School, and she worked as a teacher assistant before becoming a stay-at-home mom while pursuing a master's degree in school counseling. And then prior to joining the staff at Blue Ridge Elementary School, she worked as a school counselor at both our middle school and our early college. And so Julie has a heart for students and often goes above and beyond to make sure their needs are met. And this was Lynette Stallings, her coworker, who shared that. She's thoughtful, caring, calm under pressure. She loves her job and is the perfect school counselor, very deserving of this award. Well, we are very appreciative of all the hard work, the true love and compassion she shows toward children. And we seem to have a lot of that here in Ashe County, but Julie Jones is among the best. So we appreciate her very much. And then last but not least, and maybe Julie will come in here after this, but last but not least, Holly Mcclure. And Holly said she was, oh, there she is. So Miss Mcclure is, there you go, hi Holly. So Miss Mcclure is an exceptional children's teacher at Ashe County Middle School, where she's taught for 11 years. This is her 26th year of teaching overall. And throughout her career, she's also taught at Wilkes Developmental Day School, Ashe County Career Center, and Ashe County High School. And here's some quotes about Miss Mcclure. I cannot think of anyone more deserving of Ashe County's Teacher of the Year than Miss Mcclure. And this comes from Dustin Farmer. I do not believe that Miss Mcclure chose to be an exceptional children's teacher, but rather accepted the calling. This is evident through her love, care, and compassion for the students she serves. She has led the EC department of Ashe County Middle School for many years. Administration has consistently relied on Ms. Mcclure year after year to help create the master schedule. She's a ray of sunshine to our staff and the students she serves each day. And we are so fortunate to have Ms. Mcclure at Ashe County Middle School and are proud that she was chosen to represent Ashe County Schools as the Teacher of the Year. And I want to say, Ms. Mcclure, I've been in her classroom a couple of times. The one that was most, so as I was walking out of her classroom the last time, one of her children said, one of her students said, Ms. Mcclure loves me. I just know it, she loves me. That struck me. For them to just, it was unprompted, like, you know that she truly deeply cares about children. When a student unprompted said, Ms. Mcclure loves me, she loves all of us, really, is what the girl said. So, you know, that just, it brought tears to my eyes, and just thinking about it makes me know that kids are in good hands when they're with Ms. Mcclure. So thank you, Ms. Mcclure. And good luck this week or next week on your Regional Teacher of the Year interviews. Next week?
Dr. Cox, Julie is not in.
Okay.
I'm not seeing her in the meeting.
And Holly looks like she might have frozen. Are you muted? She's frozen.
You're breaking up. I see you, but I can't hear you.
Well, your dog likes you too, so that's a great thing. So, Ms. Mcclure, we said lots of great things. You'll have to go back and watch the recording. We said lots of wonderful things about you, and we appreciate your leadership for Ashe County Schools. Thank you for choosing us.
I've had the opportunity to work with Holly more than one time as an exceptional children's teacher at the middle school, and I can say truly she loves everybody, and it is such a rewarding experience to work with Holly. Just unconditional love, and those kids reflect that through their successes, and so she is very deserving of this Teacher of the Year. Very proud of you, Holly.
And it's okay, I think for that whole set of everything, that all deserves the Blue Ribbon School, Rudel, and all of these of the year folks there that deserve a good round of applause.
Yeah. There's more good to come for next month, but we saved it for next month. So we're good to come.
Now we'll move on into action items for the board. Our first item under action items is the approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion for the approval of the minutes?
Mr. Chairman, I read through all of these, as long as they were, and they all seem correct, so I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
Anybody have any questions or comments on the minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor, raise your hand. Motion carried. Next, we've got under action items, test to stay. I'll turn that over to Dr. Cox to explain.
Okay, so this is brand new, hot off the press. One of the things we've heard is about quarantine. We've seen student quarantines. We have way too many students quarantined over time, and there's not a whole lot we could do about it until now. And we're following the guidance of the health department, so they're the ones who officially issue those quarantine orders. But we are bound, to follow those orders. I was approached because of our partnership with the ABC Collaborative by one of the lead doctors who is doing a research study that would allow us to keep kids in school, which that's our goal, is to keep kids in school safely if they opt in to test to stay. And so what that means is that if a student has been exposed at school to COVID, they can't be living with a family member who has COVID. That won't count because the exposure is different. But if you were exposed to a student at school, on the bus, playing sports, where most of our exposures come from that are in school, the student would have the option through parent permission to test to stay. So instead of being quarantined and sent home for how many ever days, depending on whether they test or they don't test, they would be able to stay in school, ride the school bus, which is huge because in any other time they wouldn't be able to ride the school bus after the 7 days. They'd have to still stay out because they'd be close contact if they test to stay. So what that means is that we would issue a rapid test at the school to the students on day 1, 3, 5, and 7. So it's not every day, it would be every other day. Meanwhile, as long as they are symptom-free and they are testing negative with that rapid test, then they stay in school. They don't have to miss at all. If they, of course, test and they test positive, they go home. Or if they start showing symptoms, any sick kid goes home anyway. But if for the majority of our children, where we are seeing that they are not getting COVID with these quarantines, because we're following our mask guidance and other protocols throughout our school, they're missing school and they're sitting at home healthy. We want kids in school if they're healthy. So this would allow us, and we have full support of our health department, and this was just approved on Friday through North Carolina DHHS so that we could actually participate in this program. So there are a couple of things that we would have to remember. They have to be a member of ABC Collaborative, which we are, and contributing our data, which we are. We have to have universal masking indoors for now. And there's a caveat that might come later, but for now, we have to have universal masking to be able to do this. Implement a testing program in which we have the ability to do that. Our health department, right now, every one of our nurses has now been fit tested, so they can administer these tests. We can give additional people the opportunity to do this. And again, these are for students, just like I said, it's going to keep them in school. So, and it's going to save families to do this, so that rather than sending them home to wait a few days, then wait on the health department and wait on a test to come back, it'll be done right there in school with people that are familiar to them. They can go on back to class, get the test results, and move on. So to me, it's a convenience factor, but it's also preventing them from being out unnecessarily. So a way that we can work under the guidance that we've been given to keep kids in school. With this, the hope is we have now numbers to say, okay, kids can stay in school. Then once the vaccine is widely available to children, which I'm hoping that, by the end of 2 more weeks, yeah, by Halloween. So by Christmas, then most families who want the vaccine for their child will have been able to give it. And then maybe we can lose some of these because we'll have vaccines for our kids that are actually in school available. And we might be able to do that as a next step. But for this, at least it keeps them in school, allows them to ride the school bus, allows them to basically do everything except for they wouldn't be able to do contact sports through this process. But that's because of that's where the highest risk factor is for the students is in sports across the state and across the nation. We saw it at the beginning of this year. There's no masks and, on a sports team. So, and then of course it's voluntary. So families do not have to do it. They can keep quarantining their children and having to follow the rules that the health department and the state and whomever else has set for us. But this would allow some choice. So if you want your child to stay, so I'll give you an example. My oldest is a sophomore. He plays in the band at ASU. Once a week, he goes in and he has to test to be able to play. So he has to test negative once a week to go in and play. He's like, okay, keeps me playing. Similar in that he hasn't been exposed. This is that's a more proactive approach. This one is you've been exposed. We would normally send you home. Instead, if you test on days 1, 3, 5, and 7. Now, if we find out on a late Friday that that a child has been exposed, that's day 1. Well, we're not testing people on day 1. We wouldn't test them until they came to school on Monday. That would be essentially their 3rd day. So we would test them when they come back. So it would only be days 3, 5, and 7. If it was a longer period than that, they would only test on those days that are remaining from the day 1 of their exposure. So it really might not be 4 times testing. It may only be 2 times or 3 times testing. But really, again, it keeps kids in school and learning. And of course, that's what we want our children to be in school, because the number of kids that we have had out quarantined and sick, I'll get to those in a little bit. I mean, in the last 3 weeks since we last met, we've had 168 kids quarantined. And our numbers have been declining, but we still had 65 students in those weeks who've had COVID too. So, and 7 staff members. So this would have the kids who are quarantined because of an exposure could actually stay in school if they were exposed in school. Again, if they were exposed because their family member has COVID, that's a different story. They have to stay home because likely that's going to spread within the family. But if they're exposed at school, if you're exposed on a school bus, you can come and stay. So that's essentially, I gave a couple examples there, but you have to be a K-12 student or staff member. So this includes staff members too. Now, whether you're your vaccinated students and staff members don't have to quarantine. But for the unvaccinated, and this is a large majority of our students who are unvaccinated, this helps them stay in school. They have to wear a mask indoors when it's school for the entirety of this program for now, and have been exposed to COVID at school only. So I put that one first because it's not quite it's a test to stay. It keeps kids in school and healthy. It's not quite as proactive as the pool testing option. And Brian Hampton's going to come in and speak about that. And you had asked about that at the last meeting. That's more of a proactive approach. This is somewhat reactive, but right now everything's reactive. We're okay, let's quarantine everybody because that's what we have to do. But we're not quarantining, it comes from the health department, but we're facilitating in the information that's provided. But again, this will keep kids in school under the guidance that we are told we have to follow. So what questions do you have on that one?
Do we actually have these tests on hand? Because we were told before that we did not have them. So, I mean, at the beginning, and also we were told that the rapid test could not be we still had to have the PCR. So if we still have to go PCR, I'm questioning, we can do the rapid test and that's it.
Correct.
And the reason for that, there's a couple of things that are happening with rapid versus PCR. There's actually a rapid PCR test now,
Right.
and some of our providers are doing that. And we are looking, if someone is symptomatic while they're tested and their rapid test is negative, that's a different type of situation than if I've just been exposed and I don't know when I'm going to turn positive because I'm not symptomatic at the time. So we've had lots of discussion with App Health about what that looks like. And then in this case, we will have rapid tests available at the school. Those are coming in through this testing program that we have opted into. And we will have those there. Each school except one has several on hand right now. And I just have to order and there will be more. And we also have other supplies ready to go when needed, if needed.
So those have just recently come in. Our nurses had to be fit tested to actually give it. So to give those rapid tests, so now they've all been fit tested, as of about a week and a half ago, something like that. They had to go somewhere and actually go through that protocol. And we can actually test additional staff members in order to be able to administer these tests at each school site, so it doesn't all fall on our nurses. But this, to me, helps keep children in school. And it's optional, so if families don't want to participate, they don't have to participate. They test them.
Do we know a number on how many students have been exposed or at school? I mean, versus coming to school and they've had a close contact at another outside function.
So I don't have quarantine information that's specific for school right this minute. I can get that for you.
Yeah.
So I meet daily with the nurses and we talk about new student positives, new student quarantines, new staff positives, new staff quarantines. The discussion happens at that time, but I've not been documented that way. We do have information on secondary transmission, meaning that we know that they, if someone tested positive due to an exposure at school. And that number's been very low. And the biggest chunk of that came from sports contact.
Bus, and lunch.
Those are the areas. Those are
When
the
they're not
three
wearing
areas.
masks.
And I would say it's 95% of our secondary transmissions have come from unmasked tongues. And that's just what we're getting. That's the data that we have. But I'm sorry, what was the second part of your question?
That was just
Okay.
checking to see, because this is the only exposures at school.
Correct. So if they're exposed at church or, at ball practice or whatever, it's.
Well, ball
rec league or-
practice, if it's school, ball
No, I'm
practice.
saying like, rec league, soccer or, whatever. No. So if those are happening, then we can't, because we don't know the circumstances around how long they're around somebody, we do have more control over how long and the exposure amount of time and the distance. when it's at school. I'm able to track that a little closer.
And typically when we're seeing kids get it, it's because of exposure within the family. So it
Yes.
travels very quickly because, I mean, frankly, at home, I'm all over these. I mean, if somebody in my family gets it, we're all getting it, even if we're all vaccinated. You know what I mean? Likely it's going to run within the family. So there would be no way for us to safely bring a student back under that circumstance. And we still have to make sure that we're being safe. And so what this would allow us to do though, DHHS requires us to follow quarantine orders for kids. This allows us to participate in this study so that if families want to test their children who have been a close contact and who are not vaccinated, so they would have to go home. It keeps families working. You don't have to take off work to watch your young child. They can go to school, and as long as they don't have symptoms, as long as they don't have symptoms, and as long as they're testing negative, then they go to school like normal. They ride the bus like normal. That's a huge piece. I mean, some kids have missed more days because they don't have transportation and we can't put them on the school bus. If they are choosing to test under this circumstance, they come to school. And to me, that's a huge blessing. It keeps families working, it keeps kids in school, and it's, up to 4 times testing. So it's every other day. So, for a short period of time, only up to day 7, they could be quarantined for the full 14 days. Other than that, and we've had a lot of children in it. I am worried. We have more children in this school this year than all of last year already, and we're only in the first quarter. And that's scary to me, the time that children have missed because of the circumstances that we must follow. And under the guidance that we are bound to follow. So this would allow us some options that we currently don't have. And I'm all for options to keep our staff and our students in school, safe, our families working, and then we're testing right away. So that asymptomatic period that everybody hears about, where you've got a 2-day window or so where we have to go back and contact trace to see if they've been exposed because they are more, when they're shedding more viruses, I think what they're saying, their technical terms, we can avoid sending kids home and we would find out right away versus having to wait until after day 7. We could potentially find out earlier than that, that the child is positive and then send them home, and then their time starts right then. From I'm sick with COVID. But it helps us to find that and actually mitigate it right away. I don't know, I got really excited when I heard about this opportunity because I said, finally, we have some options to keep kids in school. We've been talking a lot about quarantines and there's not a darn thing we can do about it. Here we have an option that we can give to families to say, please participate, so that we can keep your child in school if they are exposed. And, we're doing our best to mitigate that exposure, but we can't keep kids, far enough apart. We want kids to work in groups. We want kids to be kids in school as much as we can. And this is one step that we could take to help that to happen. Once we have data to say, gosh, kids aren't spreading it like that. Here's what we're doing, and maybe we can lose the masks, and that in part 2 can be without masks. Right now, we have to participate with masks to participate in this quarantine study because the data that they have actually, and the data that we've been seeing too, our spread has occurred when children aren't wearing masks. And again, it's not been a whole lot, but it's been when they have been wearing masks. So this gives us an opportunity to shift in that direction and then hopefully have the data to say, okay, what happens if we lose the masks and we do this? So then you've got 2 things right there to say, this is what's next. So it gives us an option that we never had before, because right now we're following the rules.
What's exciting about this is the bus, because we have some students who are not able,
Correct.
parents cannot bring them to school when the other kids are returning to school. So those kids are getting farther behind, even though they were quarantined at the same time, because they can't ride the bus.
And we don't want that. We don't want to have a further divide, but we want to provide options. So again, we're bound to follow certain rules. We've got, if the health department gives a quarantine order, we've got to follow them. But this allows us to participate in a way that we can say, look, we're doing everything else. Here's what we can do to keep kids in school. And we'll know right away when they turn positive, and hopefully mitigate that spread. And then you won't have, the kids walking around asymptomatic and spreading it more to others. That's part of it for those who've been exposed at school.
Is there a time period for this study? Has it been decided how long this study will continue?
So I'm hoping it will continue until we can lose these things.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I was just wondering if they had given, 3
Diane,
months, 4 months, whatever the time frame is for this study, because it looks like if we agree to do this, then we're going to wear masks for that time period.
So I can ask that question and let me text them. I'll see what the time period is on the study.
Well, I've got a question, Jamie, just for clarification for me. Albeit all this is so confusing for me, and I know it's confusing for parents. I get contacts and emails on this, that, and the other. Who enforces the quarantine? The health department, the school system, on there. But, and I've talked to pediatricians. My child's a pediatrician, and they're a little frustrated with some of our counties, Watauga and Ash being 2 under app healthcare, that aren't really doing the same thing. Watauga's quarantine's 10 days, ours is 14.
No, we're actually returning on day 8 with a negative test result, or after 10 days with no symptoms. Now, busing has been the issue because we cannot guarantee they're 6 feet apart on the bus. So the 14 days has been coming into play
For the bus.
for the bus
Okay.
and for sports, but they can return after 10 days to school,
Right.
or after 8, on the 8th day, they can return with a negative test.
Okay, all right, well, I just, because Watauga is just as 10 across the board, except for athletics, which is the 14.
We're actually returning more kids at day 8 than Watauga by a lot,
Okay.
from the last data that I saw, because our nurses are being very transparent with our parents when they contact them to say, this is the day, if you can get a test result after this day, they're able to come back.
Okay.
Will they be able to do the rapid test at school for those kids to return to school?
Depends on where they were exposed. And I know that
I mean, if they
sounds
were
crazy,
exposed
but
at school.
yes, ma'am, they will be able to.
So they don't even have to worry
They don't
about
have
this.
to-
They actually don't even have to stay out for those days, as long as they're asymptomatic with this program. They can continue to be at school.
But what if they were exposed at school and then they tested positive? Can we retest them at school? Because I know a lot of times there's a copay involved. It's hard to get into the health department to get a test. Sometimes their hours are very limited. And I know that families have expressed concern to me about having to visit the doctor for a visit just to get permission to go back to school. And that, to me.
So after
is
they're
actually-
positive, they would not have to have a negative result. After that, they just have to stay out there 10 days
10
of
days.
symptoms. And I don't want to expose our nurses unnecessarily to do something like testing positive if we know somebody's positive. So I would suggest that they utilize the health department, which has been very limited on their time, but that's the best way. It's free and they're able to go at a certain time, but I would not recommend our nurses dealing with a known positive.
But they don't have to, after that 10th day, they don't have to.
They don't have to test
return.
negative to return. They just have to be symptom free.
That's the only time they have to test to return is if they've been quarantining without COVID. And that's what this will help with. We'll keep them in school and we'll test them every other day as a part of this protocol. They stay in school. They don't ever have to worry about finding a doctor, going to the health department, the inconvenience of families having to take off work to stay at home with their young child. Unless they're sick or turn positive, they stay in school. And to me, that's a huge win if you all allow us to participate in this.
I
But you
want
have
to do what's
mask.
best for students and I want to do what's best for teachers in our school system as a whole. As a leader, though, I want to know what kind of commitment this is because this reads as a commitment to mask for the time of this program or of this study, right? So as long as that's clear, I mean, I'm good to go to do what's best for students and teachers. I'm good to go, but I want to be transparent and clear about what it is that we're voting on and how long that this will take.
That's
Right.
my concern as well, Dr. Summers.
Agree.
And is that correct? What my statement, is that right? Is we reading it correctly?
It is my fervent hope that this COVID rate continues to decline.
That's
and that
right.
We are done with this mess eventually, and I don't want us to carry on something that we don't need to carry on.
Correct. So, I just texted the lead researcher to find out when that,
Or can we opt out of this commitment at any time? Like we're doing monthly mass stuff, can we opt out of that program at any point? As we see whether or not we need it or how successful we might be with it if we choose to do this program. I'm
all right, so if you want to read their IRB, I can send you this too. Anyway, so this is the application that they have submitted in order to be able to do this study. And their project is ongoing for a while, but it does not say.
I would expect if we opt in, we ought to be able to opt out.
That's
Well,
not voluntary, it's voluntary study. This is a
It's voluntary study, so to me, it would be hey, if this isn't working, you just don't do it.
That's the worst thing.
I'm just looking for ways to keep kids in school and keep kids safe. And if we can prove, they used our data to get kids to come back to school all across the United States. It's from the 11 counties in North Carolina that participated in the ABC Collaborative. So we contributed to that because we said, gosh, we need kids in school. We went to school as much as we were allowed last year and wanted to go more, but we just weren't allowed to do that. So to me, this is a way that we can put data out there that says, okay, this is what's really working. Take away some of the arbitrary stuff. We have data on, what we think is going on, but if we don't need to quarantine kids who've been exposed because they happen to be doing, group work together like this, then I don't want to quarantine kids because of that. And, and it's hard to tell whether somebody was really as mask compliant as they needed to be during the course, period of the day. Most children are, but, was it 15 minutes? Was it 17 minutes? Was it 8 minutes? I don't know for certain, when it comes to that. So most children, if, we're erring on the side of the child, but, if they're close contact, they're close contact. So if they're riding home and they've taken their mask down like this on the bus, that's where we're getting a lot of our quarantines from because, they're sitting right next to each other for a long period of time. And we want to be able to say, okay, wear your mask, test to stay. And if you're negative and you don't have symptoms and you test negative, then you stay in school. So anyway, I would say that I'm never going to say that we can't just leave.
It's a voluntary study.
Volunteer.
I just feel like,
Scientific rationale.
I don't want to lead you incorrectly, but.
We're going to have to vote in item 4 per the governor's request to adopt an optional policy or a required policy on masks. So really, we're talking about something here that we've not voted on a prior policy. I mean, do we need to go forward to back up? If you see what I'm saying.
So
one is affecting the other because
Correct.
you can't vote on this
Right.
one if we do not want to mask.
Well, I
So we
felt,
can,
right, I felt like you needed to hear this one first because it was new. We never presented it. I mean, it came to me last week. We needed to present it to you first so that you would know that this is an option for quarantines. Without masks, we're quarantining more kids. Not we, but the health department, because the mask on masks saves kids from being quarantined in the classroom. And we've had, since you guys, or I gave you this information here, we have had 681 students quarantined as of Friday.
Since school started.
Since school started.
No, this is big concern.
600, no, plus, okay, that's just quarantine, plus another 261 students. Most of them have been, from the community, a lot of community exposure, bringing it inside the school. 261 students have been positive for COVID.
Since the start.
That's a lot of days missed from school. That's a lot of days missed for families from work.
That's since the start of school, though. I mean,
Since the
that's-
start of
that's-
school.
Actually,
That's collective.
Correct.
am I allowed to?
Correct. Since-
Right. We've got 13 currently, according to this.
What's that?
We've got 13 positive.
Well, 13 that were positive last week.
So
we have more that are,
Positive during the week.
right, that became positive during the week. And we have more than that that have been out. We have more that are out as of today.
Right.
But we don't, 13 was new positive cases last week. Those are all new cases between those dates, not
Sunday.
that are currently positive, because some of those are, well, all of those would be currently positive under that date.
But then some maybe
But
still
some may be
out because they
still
were
out.
positive last week.
Correct.
But these were new positives during that span. Positively, we can say we had 0 staff and 0,
One positive staff.
one positive staff last week. So it is decreasing almost by half every week.
That's great.
But quarantines, like we had 106 quarantines on the week of September 11. We had 43 this past week. And that's been up and down. It was higher the week of August 22nd, and we had 100 kids that were out under the old quarantine rules. We're just trying to make sure that we are keeping kids in school, and that's a lot of kids. That's a lot of days missed. It's a lot of school missed. It's a lot of time work, missed from work for families. I mean, it's just, it's a lot. So
I know of one student who went to school for the first time last week, and she has not had COVID.
So those particular cases, because they've had it in their family, so mom has it and dad has it, so if they're living in that situation, their quarantine does not start until the other ones end. And that's something we'll never get around. So those are not as common, but
But we do have some.
We do
We're
have
working
some.
really, really hard to try to get them. We've tried to keep them engaged and get their work to them and Zoom in as much as we can, but these poor kids are just starting. I mean,
and these are, again, all consent, like informed consent. You just have to, all of this is an opt-in. It's not, all of this is opt-in. I mean, the only thing you have to do is be a part of the agency collaborative, which we already are, submit the data, wear the masks. That's the difference, but it will help to mitigate quarantines because we've had way too many of them. And as vaccines are available, hopefully we have less and then we don't have a need for it. For those who want to get it, that is. And if they don't want to get it, then that's, again, choice for parents.
and the other thing that I don't know if you mentioned, this is also an option for our staff members.
Yes.
So that's huge because right now, if the staff member's been exposed to a positive student, there was no leeway. Like if it's 2 masked students, then they don't have to quarantine. But if it was a staff member and a student, the adult has to quarantine, period. So this test to stay also gives us the option for our staff members to be able to stay as long as they test negative and they're asymptomatic.
That has been very confusing to me, Jamie. Do you have any insight as to why our adults are being treated differently?
So
than our
the
students?
toolkit is written very specifically that way. And the reasoning, now Dr. Fox, correct me, my understanding was because last year during COVID, that the transmission between students was so much less, that anytime an adult was exposed by another adult or a child, they were much more likely to contract it. So if it's a mixed group, if it's an adult to an adult or an adult to a child, then they have to quarantine.
And we've had whole classes that have.
If the adults that became positive was within 6 feet for 15 minutes or longer during a contagious period, and if you're sitting at a small table,
We don't have.
reading group rotations.
We don't have 6 feet room.
No, we don't, not in that situation. And again, to my knowledge, none of those has come back.
None of the students came back positive.
One did,
One.
but it would have kept everybody else in school.
FFCRA.
Okay, there's another piece to this. Roy, if you can share the FFCRA leave that you all approved the extension of back in March. It ended. So,
So it was a
Thursday.
FFCRA, the Family First Coronavirus Response Act or Relief Act. It was approved or initiated under President Trump. It expired at the end of 2020 and we were allowed to extend it. You all voted to extend it, which is great. And then it expired again at the end of March. And then the Biden administration through ARPA said that we could extend it. We extended it through September 30th, which was the maximum. And what that leave did was it covered staff members if they were going to be quarantined, or let's say they felt sick and they needed to go get tested, or they had a scratchy throat and they're trying to be a good citizen and not expose other people, they go to the health department and get tested, or their doctor and get tested. That leave, that federal leave, paid for up to 80 hours of covered sick time that didn't go against their leave balances for them to go get tested. That leave has now expired. So the only thing that we have now to cut in, it expired on September 30th. The only thing that we have now to cover employees, if the health department writes them out as a positive case under an isolation order, or they quarantine them as a close contact or known positive, then that leaves covered for staff. But if a staff member is only going to get tested, that's no longer covered. If a staff member's childcare is closed down for a COVID issue, they used to be covered under a 2/3 rate of pay and they could supplement with the other 1/3 of their leave balances to make a full day. That's no longer covered under the FFCRA. I contacted NCASA and spoke to one of their representatives on Wednesday and Thursday of last week just to verify that there were no applicable extensions to the FFCRA, and they said not at this time, according to NCDPI's human capital people. So basically, if we were to, and this is your decision, of course, and I respect whatever you decide, if we had a test to stay policy in place where, let's say, a teacher is exposed at work, in a normal situation where they would have to maybe quarantine or whatever, if we do a test to stay with them, they may be able to stay in place on campus and not have to use their available sick leave balances or any other kind of leave balances that would be applicable at that time. So that's another piece of the puzzle that we felt like you all needed to know. So as of right now, the FFCRA leave is over, and it doesn't look like there's an extension coming down from on high. Locally, we could decide to do whatever you all wanted to do as far as employees going out to get tested. But I felt like you needed to know that information as well.
But if we're doing the rapid test in school, they would not need to do that.
Pretty much the group, as long as the exposure happened at school, if I'm understanding correctly, they would, if they tested and it was negative, they wouldn't need to go home for that day. They just need to wait around for 20, 30 minutes in a nurse's office or somewhere kind of secluded until we figured out if they were positive. If they're positive, they would still be written out by the health department on an isolation order. That leave would be covered. The main concern I have is that they would be penalized for doing the right thing, going somewhere else to get tested, and then having to wait the period of days or a day or 2 days, whatever it is, in order to get those results back for them to come back to school. So that group of people, that's the most concerning, because then, of course, you would be afraid or worried that people might not report that they're feeling sick because they know they can't afford to lose that day of sick leave. Does that make sense?
Perfect sense. And if you're having to go home with your child who's at school, if they can be tested at school, that also saves us. And we don't have enough substitutes to cover all our classes now.
I also wanted to point out that in addition to the number of quarantine students and positive students, those huge numbers did not include the number of students that have missed days out for testing. So that's on top of all these other quarantines. These are the official quarantines they've missed 7 to 14 days for. That does not include the number that have missed a day to 3 days or 4 days, depending on whether they were symptomatic or other, to actually test. We've missed a lot of school because of the circumstances and what we're required to follow. Some of it necessary. If a child's sick, they need to stay home. And we're working with them. But there are kids that aren't, that are going to get a test and they're hanging out until they come back negative. And we want to avoid that as much as possible. If we can test them there and parents approve to test them there, they stay in school, they ride the bus, they do the other things. So anyway, we're looking for ways and asking for ways that we can keep children in school, because it's incredible how many school days. I mean, if you just multiply that by 10, we're talking about, a lot. I can't even do that math right now in my head. It's a lot of days. I mean, we have over 6,800 quarantine days, and then COVID days, another 2,600 COVID days that kids have missed already in the first quarter. It's too much. It's too much. I mean, it's too much. Well, think of all the days that parents have missed from work. Like, it's a lot, and it's frustrating. I know it's frustrating for families.
It's also frustrating for our teachers who
And
have
for our
to deal with
teachers.
kids who are
They're
not
in
there,
and
they're
out.
It's
It's hard to keep up with.
frustrating.
Yeah, it's hard to keep up with. So we're just trying to find some ways around the rules that we have to follow in order to help our kids stay healthy and in school, and help our families that are struggling with this. Because I know it's frustrating. I'm just lucky my child's not one that's been quarantined yet.
Do we want to vote on this, or do we want to vote on the COVID-19 and mask? To me, I still think to have this policy, test to stay, we're going to have a decision on that. And if we're going to decide on that later, and if it's a different decision, then that won't qualify.
Correct.
On that, depending upon the board's decision on that. If it's okay with you, can we go ahead and just talk about maybe pool testing, and then we'll vote and then back up and vote on the other two, if that's okay with the board?
Yeah. Okay, so pool testing, we brought that to you last time, and if David is on here, you asked if we could get his opinion. Brian, I'm sorry, Brian, when we switch athletic directors, I'm still using the other name. If Brian is on here, he said he would be. I know he had practice.
He's coming in, Dr. Cox.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Cox, could you turn down the TV just a little bit? She says you have that remote.
Yep.
Thank you. I think I'm sitting right under the speaker.
Oh, yeah, that was, there you go.
Yeah.
Pool testing, I know you guys had, essentially this is a pool of 25 or less students, and we can break them up into sections, if you will, of a screening testing that would happen on Monday. The results would come back, and then Following that, the actual testing would, if there's any positives in that pool, then those in that small pool would take a rapid test. It would be done on site and results immediate. So you would know exactly who's positive and they would go home. If we had this in conjunction with the quarantine, we don't have to quarantine the other students. They've already had their first negative test and they stay in school. So you just have that one positive student or how many ever it is that gets to go home in that scenario. So this has actually changed a little bit if you also go with the research study, because then we don't have to quarantine anybody else who's in that, and especially if they were, someone might not have been a close contact, but they wouldn't have to go home. They just go on about normal. The pool testing is more of a proactive. Our staff isn't the one that would do the pool testing. It's the hired company from the state that would come in and do that pool testing. So it doesn't put anything additional on our nurses or our staff. The vendor actually does that testing, and they'll spot it faster, because you're talking about kids who would be asymptomatic, because if you're symptomatic, you're going home. So these would be the ones that are asymptomatic and potentially spreading it. So, and we asked for this within sports because there's a much higher risk of exposure in sports. And then of course, that's what we have seen here and across the state with the data. Most of the exposures have happened within sports. Kids need to be playing sports. I mean, it pained me to have a football team out for 2 weeks. I know Brian Hampton, it did for him too. So Brian, we met, Brian, if you want to share your thoughts on the pool testing.
Like I shared with you earlier, the football program's always said we'll try to do whatever we can to play. And I have reached out to other coaches with mixed feelings about the pool testing. The ones that are not in favor of the pool testing are more concerned about losing practice time due to waiting for test results. It would be a little bit easier for football to be creative with the pool and spread out the positions in the pool to where if there was a delay in the test results, we would not miss as much practice time. I think the one thing that it would have allowed us to do is it would have allowed us to find an asymptomatic student or two that really we had no idea for about a week that they were asymptomatic and contagious, and that could have changed our quarantine time altogether with football. The one thing that I think is a big misconception too is the way I understand the pool testing is the students themselves actually administer the first test. Is that not correct, Jamie? They will take the swab and 1, 2, 3 on one nostril and 1, 2, 3 on the other, and then place it in the bowl, for lack of a better term. And then, of course, if there was a positive, then that would result in a regular test. But again, I've had a couple of different coaches that they're concerned about lack of or loss rather of practice time. But for the most part, I think our players are wanting to do whatever they can to be able to participate.
And that loss is only if there's a positive within there. And to me, if there's a positive, you're going to miss more practice time than that under, if other kids have it. So we just want to mitigate the spread. And this can be a proactive way of finding it before they are symptomatic and having to trace back. So again, another option we have to be proactive, and we haven't been able to be proactive in any of this yet because of the rules that we have to follow.
The one concern I would have with this is getting parent permission. If it was within our paperwork as For example, the drug test paperwork that we mandate that they fill out to participate in athletics. If that would have been part of that paperwork, I don't think we'd have an issue doing it. But without that in our paperwork, I don't know the legalities there of testing without parental permission.
Have we talked to Fred about what that would look like?
So we can do parent permission, or it can be mandated for a test by the board, of course.
That's
But
an athletic requirement to play.
as an athletic requirement to play. Elgin City Schools is testing in this pool testing as a requirement to play at this point in time. So they're the closest one to us that has had a board meeting and made that decision.
Within a smaller area, the nurses have discussed, and I think there's 2 other districts near us that are heavily considering pool testing. One, not even just athletics, like looking at doing it with other groups, maybe classrooms, wasn't sure on that, but one, very, very likely to do athletic.
Does anybody here feel strongly about this? Do you want this, Brian? Jamie, do you want this? Dr. Cox, do y'all want this? Does somebody feel strongly about this, bringing it to us? Because unless you do, why are we considering it? To mandate something? Why would we consider it?
I think it would have helped in our situation. If there is an asymptomatic student, it is a way to be proactive. As far as mandating, that's not my decision.
If Jamie says we need to do this, I'm good. I'll go. I'm good. I'll go. Let's do it. But to sit here and go back and forth on whether we're going to do it or not, we've got some big stuff to decide. And I don't know that this is it. And our teachers, I feel like are stressed out and fearful. I feel like I've had a difficult time supporting them going back and forth. I just don't know that this is what we need to be deciding right now. And I'm looking around at my other leaders for this school, and we are in a tough spot. And I want to focus on the big stuff right now. And Mr. Hampton, unless this is the big stuff, unless you really want this for your athletes, I don't know that I want to fight this fight to have students swab themselves.
So Dr. Simmons, if I were going to choose a decision here, I would mask students for now. And I know, I hate even saying that because I hate these things, okay? I mean, I hate these things. I get the whole argument for it. But our data has shown us so far, but until we have, I would do that. And then I would implement the test to stay to keep kids in school. That's what I would do now. The pool testing is another layer to be proactive. But, as far as a battle, it doesn't need to be a battle. I don't if you're not going to mandate that everybody on a sports team or band or cheerleading does it, then don't do it, because it's not going to work unless we're all in and together all in.
And I think that
I would just not do it.
I don't
think parents are going to be on board.
I think we were all on board with the pool testing before we learned about the test to stay. I think that sort of changed our priorities a little bit. A month ago, I would have been all for this. The levels were a lot higher, and I would have been all for it to let our athletes have the chance to participate in as many athletic events as possible. Right now, with the numbers going down and with this test to stay option, I don't think the pool testing is as big a push as that may be. That's just my opinion from the athletic side.
That's exactly ours. But like I said, we brought it to you last time.
Right.
And said we'd bring it back with an opinion. And this other test to stay came to us, Thursday, Wednesday, whatever day, Josh, Wednesday. It was Wednesday. So relatively new opportunity for us, but there's some other decisions around it. So to me, to keep kids in school, that's number one. And then if we can prove that, you know, we can do otherwise, then we need to do that. And then.
And I do not want to send teachers that are on the front line to work on the front line and feel like they're not supported. I just cannot, I cannot do that. And to have our students there in the schools and us making decisions and them to feel. I've talked to some students and I've talked to some teachers, and I just don't think that we can do that anymore. I do not.
Ron, do you think pool testing will help you when basketball season rolls around?
I think the test to stay is a better deal than the pool testing right now. That's my opinion. If you'd asked me this a month ago, I'd have been all for the pool testing. My opinion right now is that we have a better option. That's just my opinion.
Okay. Dr. Cox, what's the percentage of COVID in Ashe County today? Do you know? 11%.
So I shared with you as of.
I mean, I'm looking at the right chart.
So this data that I gave you that has our stuff on top is hot off the press from today, as of October 4th, which is today. You can look cases by age group. This is directly from the health department. And again, this is only health department data. This does not include at-home tests and others that, and some of that, you know, some of the others lag behind. Our positivity rate is right now 11.2%, which is still very high, but it's on the decline since last week. But it's you know, this is the trend line. You can see.
And I said that to say this: when we went back to school last year, we went back when it was under 5%, and we went back 80 days.
Yeah.
The half the class went on Monday, Tuesday, clean Wednesday. The second half of the class came on Thursday, Friday, and they wore masks.
Yes.
And here we are at double the rate in the county, with 49% of the people in this county not vaccinated. And we're discussing whether or not to wear masks to protect our children. Because I heard you say a while ago, we had 168 kids right now in quarantine, 65 COVID cases, and 7 staff members.
I have some information from the ABC Collaborative. It said it's 4 to 6 weeks with an interim analysis. This is for the test to stay. It's 4 to 6 weeks with an interim analysis at that time. If data look good, participating districts can continue. DHHS or Duke will provide tests after November analysis. If schools want back out after the interim analysis or at any time, they can.
Yeah.
So we would be, so November would be that time period really to look at. So in November.
Well, it seems to me that you might want to drop for the sake of time, that you might want to drop the pool testing and go with the new method of keeping the students in the school. Because we only have 28% of our 12 through 18 students vaccinated. And only 51% of the people in Ashe County have been vaccinated. And most of those are old people like me, not young people who are in the school system. And regardless of where anybody finds their CD information, I did research today, and the CDC guidelines specifically say K through 12 schools recommend universal masking for all teachers, staff, students, and visitors to K-12 schools, regardless of vaccination status, age 2 or older. That's the CDC guidelines. That's government documented. And if you don't follow it, you can get in trouble if things happen in your school system.
So with the new test to stay, that does require wearing masks. And I think we're all in agreement, this opportunity came afterward, and we just want to keep kids in school. I think we said that the last time too. We do, however, as a part of the other, if we don't do the pool testing within our district, we do want permission for our nurses to be able to do the rapid tests on site. So we can do the rapid test on site with parent permission, and that can be for symptomatic children, before we send them home. At close contacts, it can be a part of this test to stay, but we do need permission for them to be able to do the rapid test. And I'd like to be able to do that. I think it's important for families not to have to chase down a test. And we will get them for free on our, we don't have to pay for them. I know $50 copay that I knew my child had to go get one, and I was like, go get a rapid test. I don't want to wait on PCR. And of course, he's like, I wasn't paying $50. How much? I get 50.
60 and something.
So it depends on where you go, and it was a convenience factor. Like he could have waited until the next day, but sometimes, the next day isn't the most convenient wait. And plus he was right. I mean, it's not that expensive. Or the copay. You're like, we want to be as convenient as we can for families under these circumstances. But like I said, I would need permission for our nurses to be able to do those rapid tests, or anyone who was trained to do so on our campuses.
I do want to reiterate that no child or adult would be tested without written permission to do so.
Can we get that permission over the phone, Jamie? If we have a case that comes to the nurse's office.
I would
Or would
rather
it be a
not.
blanket? Would it be a blanket thing that we?
I would still want
send home?
something in writing before we actually swab a child.
That's good to know too.
I'm not going to feel comfortable unless I have it in writing. We're still going to call mama before we swab them too, even after I have signed permission. So.
That's a good thing.
So how do you envision if we give permission to do the rapid test? So are they going to, is a permission slip going to go out to all the students, and then if a parent signs that then? Because I could see if you had an instance of a questionable, they get called to the nurse's office, but then you've got to wait on the parent or guardian to get there to sign a paper. So this would be done.
We've talked about an opt-in or opt-out. We'll have to look and see what protocol that the health department recommends as a part of that process. But certainly we want parents to be involved. I'm not getting into the healthcare of children on that level. I want to know.
Well, it would help to do those in school, because I know several parents that the health department's window is so short to do rapid tests. And by the time you start school at 8 o'clock or so, and by the time the student gets sent to the nurse's office, it's after 10 o'clock. You can't go to the health department.
And you're waiting until the next day.
And then you've got to get an appointment in Watauga County or wherever your pediatrician may be to do that, which causes a lot of hassle for the parents.
So if we can do that on site, so much easier for families. And then again, it would be opt-in permission for the test to stay as well. Again, convenient for families because we're doing the testing. They don't have to wait and hunt down a provider to get the test after day 7. We just test them every other day while we're there up till that point. But the caveat is, and that's why it's all together on here, they have to be wearing masks during those 4 to 6 weeks to be able to do that.
Okay, with the board, I'd like to address the governor's request that we have to do every month. From here on out, of that, to answer that question, and if we want to back up to test the stay and then the rapid test on there, because can't do some without the other if that's how it goes on there. So we will have to have a motion one way or the other for optional or required masking, mandated masking per the governor's request. So I'm going to open the floor for a motion either way.
I'll make the motion that we continue our mask mandate. I do not think our numbers are where I would like for them to be yet. I'm glad they're going down, and I would like for us to be able to take part of this test to stay. That has something to do with this motion as well. So I move that we keep our mask mandate in place.
And I would
At
like
least
to
for
second
another
that motion.
So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion or questions?
I'd like to make a comment or so.
Absolutely.
I appreciate your presentations today, and I take them seriously. I have some of the very same concerns. I don't like masks, and I hope we can get rid of them soon. I've looked at data every day. I've read everything I can read, and I'm still confused. The data that I'm looking at, though, as Ms. Elder said, the numbers in our county are going down. That reflects what's happening in the school, I think, because those people in the county are the ones, they're around and exposing others. I am very pleased. There's been hiccups, as that line shows. Because if this number that came out today, the 36 positive and whatever the number was last week, and it continued to drop, I would say let's do optional. But being that number came out today, I want to see if it continues down on the downward trend before I make the decision again next month. So just wanted to say there's so much conflicting data out there, and I need to read more of these.
A comment on mine, Mr. Mcclure. I still feel the same I have from the beginning. I know the data is what the data is. The numbers are going down, thank goodness. On that, I have been contacted by several parents that have sent me photographs of their students' masks that's been washed, and those masks have mold spores in them. They've got black dots in them. My own son come home the other day from a fun day at school, because I could tell it was fun because his mask was filled. On there. And so, I feel for the ones that have the breathing problems. I understand that. I myself get headaches when wearing those in a long period of time on there. So that's kind of my explanation on staying where I currently stand on that.
Well, I'd also like to make a comment that my stance stays the same with parental choice, but our county we are not prepared. We would not be prepared tomorrow morning to go to an optional mask. Our teachers are not prepared. Not that they are not prepared, but we are not prepared emotionally. When I've talked to some kids about the fear factor, for some, it is a protection for them. And I did talk to a couple that expressed that. And I don't think that we have safe quarters set up for them. I don't think that we, as a whole, I dare say that across the state that we're not prepared for some things like that to support our students that do have some of those anxieties, and for some of our teachers that have those anxieties. But my vote will stay the same. But it's not that I'm not in support of teachers and their frontline work that they're having to do. But I'm ready to vote.
Well, all the information that I get from the people out there, and I guess is to wear the mask. I get letters in the mail. I get emails. I get phone calls. I ask the people at church. I ask the kids at church, because they come to church with their little mask on. This is my little 3-year-old grandson's mask I've been wearing around. And my twins, they've been wearing them since they were 3. They're 5. They pick one up, put it on, go out. The little girls at church Sunday. Said it doesn't bother me. We wear them. They get used to it. I don't like them either. But I think the masks have made the numbers go down. If you take them off, the numbers are going to go up because the CDC plainly states it's the single best deterrent that we have at this time.
But we have to prepare for a transition because it has to happen eventually. What will the percentages be? What will the protocols be? What will the supports need to be? Because someday the masks have got to go away and that transition has to be, we have to prepare for it.
Well, I would just throw the sucker away and start teaching.
I fear it
You are
won't be
right.
that easy.
Yeah, you are right. You're very much right. You'd have to, I mean, even the protocols we have on, now, if we both have masks on, there's a certain amount of time that they're quarantined or they're suggested to be quarantined. If one does not have the mask on, then you have a whole different issue.
Yeah.
So yes, we've got to be prepared.
Right.
I don't know all the ins and outs that you guys do, but what I've been reading, there's some.
Well, but Dr. Cox and Jamie do know the ins and outs. They know, I hope, the CDC guidelines inside and out, because that is a requirement that you do know that. And so I'm sure that I can trust that they do.
It has nothing to do with trusting them. It has to do with for having a transition plan for our staff and our students.
I think we're gonna have to
Do they
do
not
that
transition?
eventually. I'm just not ready for that yet because I don't think our numbers are where they need to be. You know, when we first started this process, it was under 5%.
That's right.
And we're at 11, so we're moving in the right direction. And I understand what Josh is saying. I pulled out a mask today that I'd had in my car. And I had just washed it and I looked at that thing and I said, how can I put this thing on? It's horrible. Do we have any PCP that are, if we encourage disposable masks, which I've got doing that more now, my disposable masks, so I can just toss them and start afresh. Do we have that available for our students at school now?
So we have a lot of options. Disposables are quite expensive, but we have purchased both for our schools. So we have, earlier this school year, we purchased the smaller masks that are washable for our younger students so that they would fit more properly. And I believe there were 5 packs for students so that they, those who needed the masks could have them. I encourage, I guess, kind of like you did when the kids were younger and they bring a change of clothes and put them in a Ziploc baggie, to put a Ziploc baggie with some clean masks in their backpack. So if they sneeze and they get the nasty stuff on it, that they change out their masks. Now, if they do that and they want a new mask, there are disposable masks at the school, and we have masks on the buses. We have masks at all of our entryways. We have them in all of our offices, and they are available to children and adults. Just last week, I dropped my mask coming into school. Well, I don't want to put a mask that I just dropped on the floor on my face, so I got a disposable mask. So we just need to make sure that
we do
that's
have
what we're
lots and
sharing.
lots of the state issued ones. We have lots of those. And so typically children are handed a clean one of those if needed.
So maybe the solution to your question, Kim, is that I don't know what Dr. Cox has planned for one of those work days that teachers have in the near future. Maybe that would be one of the days that they would take and look at converting back to class as we used to know it. I don't know. But I don't think we can convert it this time.
I would be happy to survey our teachers and find out what they really need. And I think that's probably the best way to do that. So
Yes.
I know we had put a halt to some of the surveys from before. We can certainly do that again and ask them what their needs are. And it's the best way to do it is to really ask. We can do that of our parents so that you really know. We hear from people that are on both sides. I've heard from people today on both sides wanting masks and not wanting masks. We can ask, but I don't know that that's necessarily, I don't want to wear masks either, but I also know what our numbers look like. And when we've had to quarantine kids, when there's been additional spread, it's been when they haven't been wearing masks. I don't think we have a tolerance to wear these much longer. I really don't. I don't have a tolerance for wearing these things much longer. So I'm hopeful that in another couple of months that we can wean ourselves off of these things and really make sure that we are giving options and doing other things. Right now, we still don't even have, and I know it's controversial for some people, even within my own family, of getting the vaccine or not, but it's not available to our younger kids yet. So they don't have some of those same choices. But I'd like to be able to move in a direction where we can have choice and still provide a safe environment. I feel most bad, and I know that there are children that are getting sick. Some children are not getting as sick, but our adults are still getting sick. And the last thing I want, we have a lot of children who are cared for by their grandparents in this county. The last thing I want is to take an innocent child who's barely sick and then get their primary caregiver sick at home. Now, again, I know adults have choices to get the vaccine or not, and it's less, they say that, most people who have the vaccine are not having the huge impacts, but I've seen otherwise too. So, I don't know what's right. The whole thing is hard. None of us, we didn't create the virus. We didn't create the conditions around the virus. We didn't create the rules around the virus. We're following the rules. I just want kids to be in school teaching them, learning and having fun and being safe. Our adults to be able to work in an environment that they feel safe. And this, pandemic, hopefully, 2 years is about how long a pandemic typically lasts. I know that a school just opened their vault from 100 years ago, one of the schools in North Carolina, and on the front page of it was about a pandemic, about disease spread. So hopefully this is a once in 100 years and we can be done with this really soon. But we're not done with it because we're dealing with it every single day. So I don't know if I talked in circles there on anything. I just want to do what's right. And I know, like you all, it's a tough decision. I don't know that we all know what's right in this situation. But I do know that like I said, our data is showing that when we've had spread, it's because we haven't had the mask compliance that we haven't had the mask compliance.
Well, that just shows children are getting more and more often. We've had 2 children die in North Carolina, 1 6 and 1 7. One was in Mcclure County. I don't remember where the other was. Maybe Union.
Well, we've had 261 students that we know of that have been positive with COVID, and we didn't have nearly that many. We didn't have 196 that we had all of last year. I think we had 160 all of last year, and we've already had 100 more. So
less than 2 months.
Less than 2 months. 6 weeks.
6 weeks.
Okay. 7 weeks.
And I know there's not one on this board that wishes ill for anybody.
Nobody does. You guys have the toughest decision.
So, that our decisions are not made in hopes that somebody gets ill or doesn't get ill.
Not at all.
We make our decisions based on what we feel as a board member on that. We agree to disagree. Sometimes we all agree, sometimes we don't, and that's just the way that a board operates. But none of us, and we can all agree on that, wishes no ill will towards anybody. We do not want to see another adult die. We don't want to see a child die at all from anything on that. So any other discussion with that being said?
No, I totally agree with you. I'm standing in the gap to speak for all those children out there 5 to 12 that cannot be vaccinated, who need our protection. I'm not speaking for just a few children. I'm speaking for the total school system for what I think is the best for our children, so that they can come to school and they don't have to go home when it's unnecessary because they are getting behind. They need to be in the classroom. But there are other concerns too. But data does show the masks do work. The CDC does not put out any other type of data that they work. So I'm standing in the gap. I'm speaking for all those who are voiceless. That's my opinion.
Any other comments? Hearing none, as usual, as per last month, we'll do a roll call vote. And found out some order of the vote. I have been doing the order wrong. Evidently, the chair must vote last. Did not know that till the other day. So instead of going around the horseshoe, we'll kind of bounce back and forth just a little bit. So in doing that, I'll now call for the vote, single vote, and I'll start with Mr. Mcclure. Yes. Ms. Jones.
Yes.
Dr. Simmons.
No.
Ms. Eldred.
Yes.
Mr. Roden. No. Motion carries 3-2. Now we'll back up to the test to study policy that we've had information on. Do I hear a motion on that?
I make the motion that we do the test to stay because I want our kids in school as much as possible, and this quarantine thing is about to drive me.
Second motion.
Double second.
I have a motion and a second. Any questions or discussion or comments? All right. As well on this one, since these are all heavy issues that we're talking about. Mr. Mcclure, I'll start with you. Yes. Ms. Jones.
Yes.
Dr. Simmons.
Yes.
Ms. Eldred.
Yes.
And Mr. Roden. Yes. Now we'll move from there. Motion carries to pool testing and rapid testing. So we've got
Two separate things.
two separate things in there. So we'll start first. Do I have a motion to accept or not accept pool testing?
May I make a comment about the rapid testing? If we voted for test, stay to test, or test to stay, does that not include the rapid testing?
So yes and no. So yes, it includes it from the perspective of the students who are asymptomatic. What we also want to do in that is to have the convenience of if you have a child who goes to the nurse's office and they've come down and they're any one of those symptoms, that we go ahead and with permission, test the child, which is outside of this because students would be asymptomatic in what you just voted on. So it's a separate layer. It's a separate layer.
Okay. I make a motion that we give permission for nurses to do rapid and or PCR test with parent permission.
Okay, so I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I second
Any other questions or discussion, comments? Hearing none. Mr. McClure? Yes. Ms. Jones?
it. Yes.
Dr. Simmons?
Yes.
Ms. Eldred?
Yes.
Mr. Roden? Yes. Now, do we need to vote on the pool testing? Or that we're not doing pool testing? We just voted on rapid tests.
Mr. Chairman, I don't see the need for pool testing now with the test to stay option being available. So I move that we don't do the pool testing at this time.
Okay, so I have a motion to not do the pool testing. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any other questions, discussion, or comments? Hearing none, Mr. McClure? Yes. Ms. Jones?
Yes, we can revisit, can't we? Okay.
Dr. Simmons?
I don't understand. I'm sorry.
We're voting not to do the pool testing, to not do.
Yes.
Not participate. Okay, Ms. Elder
Yes.
and Mr. Rudman, yes. I would like to clarify something on the vote just a minute ago, just for me to explain. I voted for tests to stay because the board agreed masks are required.
Yes.
And I think with that, the board's vote on that to require masks, that's the best policy to fall under to limit these quarantines so these kids can stay in school. And that's why I voted yes on that. I just wanted to explain myself or I would kick myself later. Yeah, so. All right, next, we're moving on to budget resolution that we have on action items.
Mr. Chairman, could we take a brief, break?
That was that. If that's fine, we'll take a 10-minute break. We'll reconvene here at 8:30.
Thank you.
Dr. Cox, can I get you to hit the mute button, please?
It is, Diane. No, it's not.
Thank you.
8:30.
I've got the mute off.
Mrs. Dyson.
Can you hear us, Amy?
Yes, ma'am, I can.
Thank
Okay.
you.
All right, we're back from a short break there, so catching back up on our agenda, we are now to the 2021-22 budget resolution. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Cox and Ms. Coldarn.
Okay, so this document that was uploaded to Assembly is the culmination of all the work that you guys have done since March. And it just pulls everything together in our subcategories that we report by our instructional, our support, ancillary, and non-program expenses. If you go through it, it's all different funds. It's Fund 1, current expense, capital outlay, child nutrition, and Fund 8. Did I say federal? I think I said federal.
Anybody have any questions for Ms. Coldarn? Well, I'll entertain a motion to accept the budget resolution.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion that we accept the budget resolution.
Do I have a second?
Second the motion.
Any questions, comments, discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries. Next, we'll move on to the last action item under action is personnel. And usually, I guess we see you on the screen here in person.
Yes,
So good to see you in person.
me too. We've got the personnel agenda and then the addendum. And I'm excited that we're going to get some more substitute teachers in. It looks like we've got about 6 this go around, and those are desperately needed. And our 2 COVID contact tracers, one for the high school and one for the county, really help us better manage our data and also our processes, making sure everything's uniform. So I'm excited for the hires I think that we've got. So we're awaiting your approval.
Okay. We have a motion to approve the personnel items.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the personnel.
All right.
Second.
So I have a motion and a second. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries. Now, updates, discussion, announcements, information.
So I don't think I have any more announcements unless I forgot something, but we have, from a curriculum standpoint, we want to do a curriculum highlight each month so that we can really showcase the great things that are going on in our schools. And so this month is our STEM innovator and some of the great STEM things that are going on, especially in our elementary schools. But Courtney Eller has provided some resources, and her presentation is there as well. But Courtney, hi there.
Hello. How is everyone this evening? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm here to share some amazing things from Ashe County teachers and students regarding STEM. And I want to remind you that STEM sparks creativity and critical thinking in students. So for this presentation, I want to start with an overview. STEM is where it's an interdisciplinary approach that integrates at least 2 of the areas in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. For this year, we're really working on 2 focuses with STEM, supporting teachers and supporting students. One thing that we've been working on is developing resources, finding partnerships, and supporting innovative teaching practices. One thing that's amazing about all the teachers in Ashe County schools is that they work really hard on finding engaging activities and resources for students. So one thing that we've worked on is developing a STEM Canvas page where teachers can go and look at things based on their grade level. So for example, if I go here to 5th grade, I've taken and found different resources and things for them that align to a variety of their content needs so that students and teachers can have some fun, engaging STEM activities to where they're able to look at things from more than one subject area at a time and go deeper in while they're learning. Some other things that we've done to support teachers so far is we've developed a newsletter. And in this newsletter, teachers are going to receive information on content, STEM activities, and resources for their classrooms. This will be coming out for teachers every month or every couple of months or so. We are also going to be working on developing parent newsletters so that they can work on doing some fun, hands-on STEM activities with their families. I remember doing such things with my dad, and I hope that Ashe County families are going to enjoy these experiences together as well. Some other things that we've worked on is working on helping teachers develop project-based learning opportunities, grade level units and hands-on lessons, finding community partners that are going to help support STEM opportunities for students, showcasing future Ashe County job opportunities for students. Research has shown if we can work on this in the lower levels, beginning in elementary and up, that students will be more likely to pursue STEM careers. We're really trying to highlight the amazing things in Ashe County so that our elementary students can start to be sparked and look for amazing opportunities in their future. Also, the things that we're doing with STEM, we're trying to root into Ashe County to where students are really understanding the amazingness of our county and how all the areas of STEM are related to how our county is successful and how we all collaborate together to solve problems. And most importantly, we're working on bringing rich learning experiences to students. So other things I would like to share with you are some local community partners we've already been working with. Keep Ashe Beautiful is a nonprofit agency. They have already sponsored a lesson for all third grade students in the county, where they worked on learning about effects of littering and designing solutions to help with Ashe County. So every student in Ashe County in third grade have already received those lessons. And they've also received a bag of materials and different things that they can use to help them as they explore littering and helping keep Ashe County beautiful. Also, our second graders are going to be partnering up with New River State Park, where they all can earn their New River Junior Ranger badge. And this is going to be an ongoing process throughout the entire year. Other things that are coming in the future are working with Ashe County Cooperative Extension, the Soil and Water Agency, and more. Sixth graders at Blue Ridge Elementary are going to be working with their Root Ed grant, where they are looking at ways to use entrepreneurship and looking at the question, how can I make a difference in my county by developing plans for future career pathways and looking at ways to create sustainability in Ashe County and for their school. Some other things that I would like to highlight for you. So here's some pictures from the Keep Ashe Beautiful partnership from all of our amazing students around the county. Other things I would like to highlight for you is that teachers in Ashe County are looking out for a variety of ways that they can incorporate STEMs and hands-on learning. So some of the things that I'm showing you in this presentation are things that I have done when I've gone in classrooms, or it's things that other teachers have done and shared with me, or where we have collaborated on a variety of activities this year. So student experiences, when we all look to in remembering our elementary years, we remember hands-on learning, or those little moments that capture your imagination, make you start to wonder, think maybe I might like to do this one day, or what would happen if I did this? So our students in Ashe County have had a wide variety of experiences and opportunities, some of them including on looking at developing growth mindset, developing 21st century skills. I know we have COVID and we're trying to be very respectful of keeping students and teachers safe, but we also want students to be able to collaborate with each other safely to problem solve, develop prototypes, and explore areas of STEM. So some opportunities the students have had so far, many of them start with reading a text or a poem or something allowed the students to engage their excitement. Second graders across the county engaged in a wide variety of Lego life cycles challenges where they had to research and then design either Lego mazes or create life cycles of animals showing what they've learned and then share those with others. Also in third grade, one of the classes, Miss Saller's class at Mountain View, they worked on looking at exploring solar energy and the greenhouse effect. They learned about the science on how the sun gets off light and heat. And then they also use materials to create a greenhouse. And they developed an experiment where they used a control, which was just a piece of chocolate. And then they used their greenhouse to try to melt chocolate to see which one would melt the chocolate faster. Other opportunities our students have had, fifth grade students have been working on designing a working model of the heart, where they were given materials and they had to look at how does the circulatory system work, and then explore other aspects such as air pressure, properties of matter, and how they all work together to pump blood throughout our heart. And these are some pictures of them and a video of one of the students where they were able to design a working heart. So some STEM opportunities are varied depending on grade levels. From this activity where students read The Three Little Pigs, and then they tried to engineer houses using different materials. And this is a picture of one of the houses that the student created. Other things include the Blue Ridge Elementary 5th grade STEM Club. Blue Ridge also has a 3rd grade STEM club and other things as well. In this, they worked on pretending to be wildlife biologists, where they looked at unicellular and multicellular organisms, and they had to design an ecosystem in a pond. And then they used a coordinate grid system like wildlife biologists do, and they mapped out the location of organisms in their habitat by also using encoding Bebot robots to go out and pretend to take samples in their environment. Other things are there's been other coding opportunities for students in the county, including Mountain View students using the new their new Spike Lego robots, and other ones using Bebot robots to work on sequencing and coding. Also, other older students, such as 6th graders at Blue Ridge and Westwood, they're working on designing a 3D structure challenge, where they are working on creating blueprints, calculating surface area and the volume of 3D shapes used to build varied structures. And then they are replicating their design by using paper net models for their castles and structures. Also, we're also integrating STEM into other things, including in social studies and reading. 5th graders in Miss Hayes' class read a text about US regions, and then they used Pear Deck, which is a technology which all students can collaborate at one time and talk and share with ideas together. And then they use that to look at a variety of historical maps showing trade, landforms, and a variety of features to choose to make decisions for locating a possible business in the past or solve a problem for the current time or the future. And then also everyone loves kindergartners and their excitement. Kindergartners worked on exploring positional words and gravity and what does it mean for the to be able to balance. And then they read the book 10 Apples on Top and practiced counting directional words and stacking their apples to see if they would be able to counter the effects of gravity by finding the center of balance and stacking 10 apples on top of each other. A couple other things, students in Miss Heinrich's 1st grade class built sprout houses so that they can observe the plant life cycle. And then also other students in different grades have been working on designing forces and motions, prototypes, and experiments to test the effects of forces and motions, or what causes for there to be more or less friction with a variety of things. One more thing that I would like to share with you is Mountain View Elementary is going to have their first fall STEM challenge. and it's going to be the October Pumpkin Picker STEM Challenge. For this challenge, we want to honor the pumpkin farmers in Ashe County. And we would like for them to think creatively on how to design a pumpkin picker to where they can pick up the least amount of pumpkins at a time. For this STEM challenge, it's actually going to integrate a variety of things, including math, science, and technology. Students are also going to collect real-time data on the number of pumpkins that they collect, and then they are going to turn in that data as well. Now, to help support parents, we are designing, and we have an October STEM webpage where parents will be able to go in and find videos to help explain math, some amazing things about Ashe County farmers and the pumpkins in Ashe County, and then resources that they can use for their pumpkin project. The math for students for this pumpkin picker challenge will also be varied depending on grade level, where students as young as kindergarten will work on counting, working all the way up to upper grades, where students will create a variety of graphs, arrays, and a variety of different math activities. All right, and that's all I have for my presentation for today. Thank you for allowing me to share with you all the amazing things that Ashe County teachers and students are doing for STEM.
Courtney, you make me want to go back to the classroom.
Thank you. Well, and I can't do the things that I do without the amazing teachers in Ashe County that I work with, and for all the resources that we have where people want the best for all of our students in our county.
You can make a catapult and shoot those pumpkins.
Well, hopefully, actually this Friday, my STEM club, we are going to be doing either pumpkin or apple chunking for our STEM challenge for clubs this Friday at Blue Ridge. So
You're in trouble if you're chunking too many pumpkins.
Courtney, thank you so much. We appreciate your hard work. She's hit the ground running. This is a new position that we created, the STEM innovator. And certainly, I think she has proven that investment well, and all that she's been able to do to support our teachers and really bring excitement of STEM into the classroom, integrated throughout. So thanks, Courtney. Appreciate you.
thank you very much. Bye.
Thanks for hanging with us a little later than usual. So, all right, next we've got state data for 2020 and 2021.
So I printed the stuff so it's easier for you to look at, and then the Earl has been really putting this data together. Some of it's just it's out there, but you have to work to put it into this form because it's not necessarily out there in this form. I wanted to give you some highlights. I don't want to harp on state testing. We're required to test. Our students do pretty well in the testing. And I know that, across the state, across the nation, on standardized tests, after being out of school and not there as much as what we wanted over the past year and a half, there were some learning challenges. Our schools proved to do very well because we have amazing teachers. We invest in the resources for our teachers and our students, and some of the highlights there. We are #1 in the state in 8th grade science. We are second and only 2.7 behind first for 8th grade math. Wow. For 5th and 8th grade science, we're second. We're only 3 behind first. For 7th grade, all EOGs together, we are 5. We're third, but we're 5 points behind first place. So we're really close. Won't read down through all of those, but we were really, really high performers as far as our district. Even on 9th grade math 1, it's typically in the 9th grade, but that's a high school math. We are 9th in the state. So those are really high rankings on some pretty tough subjects. Regionally, We're number one in a lot of things, and that's out of 14 districts. So we perform very well. We are first in 6th grade, all EOGs, 6th grade math, 7th grade, all EOGs, 7th grade math, 7th grade reading, 8th grade, all EOGs, 8th grade science, and grades 5 and 8 science. We are first in our entire region. And of course, Northwest region performs a lot better than most of the others. In general, we are high competitors. So if we're first or second or third or fourth or ninth in our region, it's not necessarily bad because our region performs very, very well. Some of the others, we're third in 5th grade science. We are second in grade 3 reading. We do well. We're second regionally in English 2 at our high school. Grades 3 through 8 reading, we're third. Grades 3 through 8, all EOGs were third. So again, we perform very well. There are some trends that we're watching over time because they're not necessarily the trend that we want to see, but it's hard to use a COVID year in there to make those comparisons that when you go back before COVID, there's some things that we need to work on. So we are, as I shared at the very beginning, looking at some of our data. We're looking at data more regularly and trying to share across schools so that all schools are performing in the way and the trend is upward, especially with growth for students. There are new calculations of those growth this year that we have to look into and really study differently. It's based on a new formula that takes into consideration time out and where they would have been. But we're going to look into that a little bit more before we bring it to our teachers. Again, I think our teachers are spectacular. They're really working hard, and our children are very fortunate to be here in Ashe County and learning. So again, there are some places in there that we need to work on, and our proficiencies aren't exactly where we want them to be. But when we look at it comparatively across the state, we do perform very well.
Mm-hmm. High school needs to bring their scores up.
Yeah, our English 2 and math scores were in the top quarter anyway. But we do have some work to do in biology. And again, COVID year, but we're looking at trends overall, and some of those trends need to be turned in a different direction. So we're putting some resources and time. But like I said, our teachers are good. Our teachers are really working hard to make sure that our kids are getting what they need and then some. And they're doing that in the midst of a pandemic, and I commend them for their commitment to kids.
Anybody have any questions?
I'd just like to make a comment about the ACT. I'd like to think about some things we could do to help the students take that test more seriously, let them understand what it means to the school as a whole and to them. Because most colleges now today accept that as entrance as opposed to the SAT.
So we've, yes, and right now, I think with so many universities being test optional, that during COVID, we had quite a few students, and we had a student who got a 35 on the ACT this year, which is, well, you can pretty much write your ticket anywhere.
That's right.
35 on the ACT.
Exactly.
So we have students who do very, very well overall. It was a challenge. It was a challenging year to even get kids in because some of our kids are quarantined and you only have 1 day to test. The makeup test, it's only 1 day, so it's not like a window of time. So we've found some challenges in administering this 1 day test, but you are correct. There are a lot of benefits to succeeding on there, including community college. So it can be the difference between taking a remedial class and placing into
the class that actually counts. For colleges, for college entrance and for some of the placement. Yes, those are certain benefits. Those are benefits.
Not a
So-
bad test.
What's that?
It's not really a bad test. Basically. I mean, I'd rather take it in the SAT.
I'm not as familiar with this and this.
So I wanted to thank Earl for putting these numbers together. He really had to pull multiple sources together and do a little bit of research in order to get those numbers for you that are in there. And just thank our teachers and kids for their commitment to learning.
That's very good. Any other questions or comments?
Thank you all for making it so readable. It's easy to follow and see, and I like that a lot. Thanks.
Good paper.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, those are for my old eyes. So.
It's easier than watching the computer screen. I will say that. All in one place. Well, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Well, I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
All right, so we have a second. Second motion. All those in favor? We'll see you first Monday in November, if not before.
If Wednesday turns out the way it might,
Are we muted?